Safety is of utmost importance in cases of emergencies, like health crisis. But this should not impede learning. Students should be allowed to continue learning in the safety of their homes. Vibal brings you the Smart Homeschool Kit. The Smart Homeschool Kit offers complete tools for a homeschool setup while encouraging collaboration between teachers and parents. This kit contains the following. First, Smart Wizard. These workbooks provide age-appropriate supplementary activity sheets to challenge learners' understanding of the lessons and help them put their learnings into practice. A teacher's guide that serves as a manual for monitoring the learning progress of students at home is also available in the kit. This kit also contains a parent's guide to assist parents in guiding their children while learning at home. Daily lessons are made available in Smart Class. Aside from lessons, these books feature performance tasks aligned with DepEd's K-12 curriculum, good for an entire school year. And to monitor students' learning progression at home, Smart Homeschool Kit also features the Smart HMS, an online monitoring system designed for homeschool learning with features including assignment of lessons and tasks to students, and tracking of learners' progress through analytics. Get the Smart Homeschool Kit today. Email marketing@vibalgroup.com for more details.
Good morning, Kavibal, and welcome to our Facebook Live learning session. For today's discussion, our topic would be on active listening and responding to children. Before we begin, take note of the following reminders. Make sure you are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your questions on the comment box allotted during the session, and they will be addressed by our speaker later on. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH as our official hashtag to our Vibal webinars. Experience learning, Kavibal. And now, to proceed with our session this morning, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker for this morning. She obtained her Bachelor of Science in Secondary Education major in English at St. Scholastica's College. Her Master of Arts in English Language Education, major in English for specific purposes, was obtained from the De La Salle University, receiving an Outstanding Thesis Award. She also completed her Doctor of Philosophy in Development Studies, specialized in internationalization of higher education in the same institution. Currently, she is affiliated with the National University as a professor and the director of the Internationalization Office. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our speaker for this morning, Dr. Glendora V.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I hope you are well, and the weather seems to be a bit gloomy, but I hope that you are all enjoying it despite the situation. And allow me today to share a piece of what I thought is essential in terms of building relationships and most specifically enjoying and having fun every single day of our lives. So, the title of our sharing today is Three Things on Tuesday. So, I will be sharing with you all about a soft skill, a specific kind of soft skill that we need to be reminded of, or perhaps we need to refresh our memory and at the same time relearn things regarding this particular soft skill. Another part of the talk that we will be having today is understanding more about us. And in return, we can understand more of our kids. And then, of course, there's a certain impact as we live our lives that way. So that is what I'm going to dwell on for this morning's talk. But please feel free to, interact with me one way or the other because, it's more enticing and engaging if I just don't do the talking and sharing what I know because I'm 100% sure your own experience can share something to the rest of the world as well. So please, later during the Q&A or perhaps while I'm, you know, on the course of delivering what I prepared for you, you can just shoot a question or a reaction that you think is worthy of discussion later. So it's not about who I am, but it's about us sharing something worthwhile and something meaningful in this time of pandemic. So basically, I just want to lighten things up today, and I hope I can achieve that. For our next slide, we have, all right, so let's begin with understanding us. All right. Have you ever focused on one particular skill on the way you relate with people, specifically on the way you communicate? Now, how do we communicate? Are we the kind of people who uh, do the talking all the time? Or are we the one to do the listening all the time? So let's check that out. Let's try to think of an instance wherein there is premium on listening. When was the last time we really listened? All right. So for those who are married, who are tuned in right now, check it out with your partner. What's the common cause of misunderstanding? People who are working in a education field, among colleagues, what's the common cause of um, misunderstanding? How come there are things that need to be clarified, but nothing has been done to have it clarified? At your very homes right now, those who are staying with their kids. Think of an instance wherein after a certain issue came about and you tried to reflect about it and you pinpointed a certain specific reason why you had a fight with your children. So that's the thing that I like us to understand among ourselves, because I really believe that in order for us to really relate well with others, we have to relate first with ourselves. We need to see and check if we have something that we are asking others, if we have that's something that we are asking from others. That's very important. And I think that's very essential in keeping up a lively, fruitful, growing, healthy relationship. So I have some sort of image here that you can probably take a look at, because there's such thing as passive listener and active listener. Most likely, if your mindset right now is focused on how you are relating with your children, specifically a kid at home that always tries to get your attention, maybe this particular um, um, presentation, I call it quadrants of listening. Maybe you can identify yourselves, which quadrant do you belong to. Now, what's the point of course, this is not 100% just basis of okay your actual ability in terms of listening, but what I'm saying is this particular image can help. All right, do you do eye contact when you talk to your children or to your colleagues, or you can't even look straight in their eyes, or you don't even look at their face if not on their eyes? So this something we need to check among ourselves. Are we authentic? What do you think is meant by that? What do you think being authentic is in terms of listening? Because some people may be looking at you and then they can simply show that they really are listening, but their mind somewhere else. So is that authentic? And then, are you enthusiastic? Are you excited to hear, to listen what the other person is about to say? Then if you are that kind of listener, you are an active listener. However, if you fall on the other quadrants, like second, third, or fourth quadrant, you may likely be categorizing yourselves as passive listener. So this is just a basis. This is not all into it. Like this is just what I'm gonna depend on if I like to understand more of myself. Since this is just the time we meet, I think we can begin with this one, because this is really something that can help you do some self-reflection. And perhaps after you do that, you can as well try to analyze what's going on between you and your kids, between you and your spouse, between you and your colleagues. How come there's some sort of misunderstanding where in fact you you've been trying your best to reach out? What seems to be the problem? What seems to be the issue behind such coldness? And what was the reason behind losing that kind of warmth that the other person um, can only give? For example, our kids right now, we are staying home. If if some parents are called to work from home, they're most likely spending all their working hours with children. So how do how do you huggle motherhood and working from home, or how do you huggle staying at home, working at home, and at the same time parenting? So it takes listening to go through all this, challenge, if you want to call it challenges, or because, I like to call it challenge because during the before the pandemic, when we used to go to work, it's some sort of a break from our household obligations, responsibilities, and involvement, because we have to focus on our work. But this time, everything is put under one roof, which is at home. So it's pays to understand ourselves before, demanding something from our kids or from people who we are living with or staying with, because understanding first where we are can help us understand others more. Next slide. I like to share with you this particular website. I'm pretty certain that most of you are aware of the 5 Languages of Love by Gary Chapman. You can Google it. I'm not really a fan of any specific author. What I do is to Google everything or browse the internet, whether I use which search engine, as long as I get to maximize a certain, information that I'd like to learn from. For example, the 5 love languages. Now, how come it's related with listening? All the love languages I like to submit to you today, its core skill is listening. Allow me to share and later I will tell you why. This is my own result from the quiz that I took about the love language. My primary love language is quality time. Anyone understands quality time? I'm sure most of us, okay, shout that out, even if our voices are heard or not. What do we understand about quality time? Here in this particular test, you are given different questions. You just have to choose. There are 2 statements or things that you have to choose from. And then you will be introduced to, okay, the 5 love languages, representation of 5 love languages. For example, physical touch. As I answered the quiz, I got 10% from that. So 10% against 30. So even if we don't touch, but if you give me quality time, my love tank will be filled. Receiving gifts. Who doesn't want to receive gifts? So I scored 13%. On the other hand, there is such thing as words of affirmation. I got 27%. It's pretty close to quality time. You know why? When somebody sees how you work, when somebody appreciates what you're doing for something, for an institution, for the family, and then they affirm that kind of action, what happens is that it makes you feel good, makes you feel better. So don't withhold words of appreciation. Say it aloud to other people. And the other side of the other representation of the love language is the so-called acts of service. If you notice, all my results, the higher the representation that I scored higher, that I scored high, are quality time, acts of service, and words of appreciation. Do they sound interrelated? I think so. Because um, even if you are given only 10 minutes, but the 10 minutes is solely devoted to you, and you feel that because of that 10 minutes, you were able to really establish something, or you were able to come up with an answer you've been wanting, I think it's more than enough. You don't need the whole day, nor the whole time that you are together, but you both are just using your phone. For me, even if you just spend, even just for 2 minutes, but I'm the only person you are listening to. You don't look at your phone. You don't think of anything but me. That's more than enough. Why? Because the world is busy. Everyone is preoccupied with something. Do you think your child or the person you are thinking of right now in relation to this talk is not as busy as you are, or is not preoccupied as the world is? With all the technologies around us, with all the leisure entertainment that comes right before us in a click, or in touching your phone. So for me, this is my love language. But what about you? So I challenge you to take this test as well, because this can help you understand yourselves more before understanding your kid. But I like to still tell you that, as we are being prepared for parenthood, if you I'm speaking to parents now, before you became parents, there were certain number of years, okay, that you were told to prepare for parenthood. The fact that a mother has to keep the child in her womb for 9 months, it is some sort of preparation, some sort of connection, some sort of building relationship with the fetus, with the baby. During the time wherein I call it preparatory phase, people get to understand who they are, what they need, what they want, and most likely, if you really anticipate a child, or if you really anticipate a future partner that for you to be together, you more or less understand how important it is to listen. When the baby is in the womb, you listen to the baby. You take a look at how the baby moves. You observe. But when I say you listen, you for those who have been mothers already, those who went through pregnancy, you try to talk to the baby, right? But when was the last time you really listened to the baby? So just think about it. All right. Next. All right. So today, what? All right. Just take a look at the statement in blue, and at the same time, I'll be talking about why active listening and responding a soft skill. In the first place, what is a soft skill? Soft skill represent the world of characters. So these are your character traits. These are our character traits. Name it. For example, you are patient, persevering, you are so concerned, enthusiastic, etc. If you match that, if you add that to your interpersonal skill, like you always consider others first before yourselves, that's interpersonal. Or you always put yourselves, or you always put yourself in others' shoes, that's something else. It's just like critical thinking. You don't really see critical thinking um, with your naked eyes. You don't really see problem solving skill with your naked eyes. But it's a kind of skill that is innate, that is within an individual. When we listen, that is innate. That is something that you can't, really learn from a lecture like this. It is something that you want to have because you're doing it. All right. Let me relate that with, learning by doing. We don't really get to know coding if we don't code. or if we don't devote our time, if we don't focus our time understanding and listening, learning about coding. The same thing with gardening, the same thing with, you know, taking good care or planting flowers that you love the most. Do Let me submit to you that even that example I gave, like planting or gardening, it involves listening as to how. All right, sometimes when there's wind, I don't know, you can ask people who are gardening, who are keeping plants in the backyard. They have a certain kind of voice that only you and that plant can understand. Even the faith that you keep, even the faith that we keep, listening to God's voice is kind of hard. How do you know? How do you distinguish that it is really God's voice? So it's something within it. It is not something that you woke up in the morning and then you already have it. It's being nurtured. It's something that you grew up with in an environment wherein people really put premium to listen to somebody in the family. Now look at what's happening in the whole wide world, the pandemic. Okay, when China spoke that there's this virus, that's, what did the world say? They didn't listen. They cursed China instead of getting what China is talking about. So who listened to China? UK. How did they listen to China? Because China sent all the genome properties of the virus, etc., for the immune, uh, for certain laboratories to study. So University of Oxford got it, and then because they listened, they started working. But really, how many governments? Some are even responded in a reactive way instead of proactive way. Are you with me? So there are a lot of examples you can consider in understanding more about what I'm referring to. So if a child grows up in an environment wherein listening is a practice before speaking, or if somebody's speaking, you listen, like the things that you learn in kindergarten, if people will grow up with those things that they learned while they were in their uh, um, kindergarten years, what do you think will be happening in this world despite the influx of technologies and so on and forth? So your sphere of influence, if you grow up in such kind of environment, will also be influenced. What do I mean with that? It will live out the way you live in terms and in context of listening and responding. Next, there are different ways by which we can um, check if we are into active listening. For example, when was the last time you demonstrate concern when somebody spoke to you? That's one. Okay, and then when you, on the course of chatting with a friend or with somebody you're close with, you try to you put whatever he or she is talking about in your own words. That's how you pick it up. When was the last time that you focus on building trust and establishing rapport? For example, when your kids are starting to inquire about so many things in the world, like they have endless whys, madaming bakit, hindi natatapos, etc. Or before they go to sleep at night, you tell them stories. So when was the last time we did that? And when was the last time we um, literally, really, really listen? How come one kid doesn't like to speak to anyone? What's the problem? Well, when we listen, it's not always something words are coming out. Sometimes you, listening also comes up with nonverbal. It happens also observing nonverbal cues. It's listening, right? Um, Assuring the person you're talking with that you really are an active listener by saying, "I understand. I'm sure. Um, I see. I know." So these are expressions that can help check if you are an active listener. Do you use them? Or perhaps you are clarifying something after hearing uh, the other person, what the other person is saying. You just don't say yes all the time, but you try to check it out if what he said is the way you pick it up. And then, when was the last time you asked specific question to to seek for? These specific questions can help people, somebody or you, the person you're talking with, decide on an important matter. Maybe if you really are listening, you would help him uh, decide with wisdom if you let him uh, look for this particular question that is related to what he's trying to solve, etc. And sometimes check it out. Some people just want to blurt out things that they have in their heart. Sometimes they don't even want to ask for our advice nor our opinion. So let them just speak their hearts out. And if they, I'm speaking this time, um, if you have a kid beyond 11 years old and above, or 10 or and above, because usually 10-year-old kid and above can already reason out. And sometimes they're asking for not your opinion, but they're checking if you are really listening. So don't miss and don't lose those chance, because that's building trust. And that's something that technology can't give. And then disclosing similar experiences to show understand. For example, your friend is sharing with you um, his heartache or her heartache. Instead of scolding her or doing something that will not really make her feel good, why don't you, if it's your turn to speak, why don't you just share a similar experience? That way we can continue a very nice relationship with one another. Now, why am I talking about all these things? Because there is an impact, there is an implication that we need to consider. If we will not um, give a premium on the importance of active listening, perhaps, I'm not sure, but there will be something in your relationship that you will not be happy about. Remember, life is short. We need to be happy. But sometimes the cause of our unhappiness, the cause of our unhappiness begins with simple listening. Because if you are not an active listener, you select. You don't see the whole context. You, because of what you heard, because you're a selective listener, what happens is that you just think of what you do not like. And that's very unlikely in a relationship. When I say in a relationship, even mother kids, father kids, mother, father, sibling to sibling, it's relationship, whether we like it or not. Because that's the very essence of being a human being, being a human being, not an artificial being, because we are very much aware of artificial intelligences. So no matter how advanced technology um, can parallel human abilities, I like to believe that it can never ever be, it can never ever become human being. All right, so allow me to share some impacts, okay, or implication of being an active listener. First off, as I mentioned earlier, when for mothers, okay, the moment you had a baby on your womb, all right, on the moment you have the baby in your womb, there is some sort of connection already. And our goal as mothers is not to lose that connection, even if they are already old and able. What is so important about connection? As I said, connection, right, keeps the relationship going. And when I say going, keeps the relationship going, it's not just going by the flow, it's growing. And when it's growing, there is an interaction. An interaction is open to clarification. An interaction is open to misunderstanding. So if we don't look at that connection, we simply lose people that we love, people that we want to be with. Not right away, but slowly, which is for me, I can come up with an analogy of a kind of slow death. Because, you know, when you were okay when they were kids, and then how come when they grew up, you were not okay anymore? How did it happen? Or perhaps you were not okay um, in your family when you were growing up, but and you were aware of it, but you don't want that to happen in your own family. So what you do is to do something, right? So parent-child relationship. Now, how do we build that? It cannot be built overnight. So it has to be built from the moment you were bringing them up, when they could not talk yet, when they could not tell what they like, what they need. Even babies, if we are not an active listener to babies, how could we feed them if they're hungry? Am I making sense? So most behavior issues are connection issues. So maybe you miss it today, and then you miss it the other day, and then it piles up. So it becomes a connection issue. Okay, impact number 2. Children listen to us more or less, as well as they feel listened to. So it's what? Give and take. And when can you teach your kid to acquire that? Right? So while they're growing up. And if parents only consider that this time, if you have young kid at home right now, I'm speaking to you, and it is more of a plea. If you want the future to become a better one, better than what we have right now, then do it. Teach our kids, because they're the future. Teach our kids the importance of listening. But we have to listen to them. That's impact number 2. Even small things that we do right now can influence the future. So don't feel down, don't feel lowly that you're staying home with kids. Don't, because it's something really going to be fruitful and meaningful. Something that you couldn't see right now because it's beyond the horizon. But you always prioritize, spending time with your children, giving them quality time is very important. And you have to be firm when you say quality time. Okay, it's related with really building good habits. I just hope all young parents would get to talk to us more about it. It would be better if you communicate with other parents as to how you really are putting in premium in listening. Third impact, both parent and child are more emotionally connected to their own feelings and needs. And we have our own needs and wants. We want to watch Korean novella like we are in a marathon, but we need to take care of the kids. So when can we spend some time for ourselves? That's what we want. That what we need? You answer that for yourself. I mean, there's nothing wrong. Or for example, some parents would love to cook all the time, but cooking eats up time. So if cooking is more important than listening to your child, then perhaps today you can, do a little reflection. Maybe you get some sense with what I'm trying to share with you. It's just like, and I'm what I like us to understand that there's still power in the so-called cliches or wordings that are we can live by, such as do others what you want to do unto you. It may sound repetitive, and people may no longer put or consider it, but really, no matter how old a cliche this is, for parents, it's a golden thing. It's something that you need to implement while raising kids so that they will remember, no matter how old the statement is. Show me yours, I'll show mine. Children, once you are able to build connection and once they trust you, they will grow up well. Because they see in you what you demand from them or what you need from them. I don't think that when you raise kids your well, they will not value it nor remember it. They will apply it. Even if you are not as good as you are, but if you realize that you need to do something for your kids so that they become somebody like this in the future, just do it. Okay? But please always listen. Because kids will say, kids will tell, your partner will tell, your colleague will tell. And if they don't speak, all the more you have to listen because they're saying something. I'm not saying that I'm a perfect girl when it comes to relationship. What I'm saying is, when it comes to listening, I think I am an active listener because it's an invaluable skill. I have been uh, meeting with a lot of people, international people, local people, but I always see that, no offense, okay, people really do not have time to become active listener or to employ active listening. Because when you are talking with the VIPs, instead of you being listened to, they will tell you, you are the listener. Active listening is just like getting into the communication realm. Because even though the other person does not speak, but if you like to listen, you will be able to hear. You will be able to get what he wants you to know. It strengthens all relationship. Keep that in mind. When practice all your life. So, hindi siya pang gabi lang, pang isang gabi, or ngayong gagawin ko, I'll do it today, bahala na bukas. No, it has to be done every single day. Next, we have, it's not just for impact. I think I prepared 7. All right. Number 5, we have to, okay, really, okay, listening, okay? Impact number 5 is found on the next slide. Really listening to your children is the best way to create a caring relationship in which they see you as being in their corner and as a base to which they always return when they need support. Ang ganda, di ba? So, impact number 5, it will not just be when they were kids. It will last a lifetime. So, even though they already grew up and they grew up well, they will still go to you for coaching, for asking your opinion, if not advice, for at least opening it up for a conversation, because they know that you are really listening, you are in their corner. The 6th implication, no, you know what I did? They don't, these things didn't really come from me. I just pick out the best that I read from Google, because this employs critical thinking, which is also a soft skill. There are so many informations you are, you know, dumbfounded by the powers of technology. You can access different websites, but which one do you really subscribe to? With the information technology right now, you need to really be critical with what you are choosing, what you are reading. So the skill I'm sharing with you right now comes from different sources. I don't own them, but I learn from them, so I share them with you. But and if you visit the sites that I'm sharing with you, it's not it's not something that you see there right away, but it's something that you have to read and you have to pick it up. Depends on the kind of idea you have and you want to share. So look at this, having this secure relationship. When I say, when this particular statement says secure relationship, it's all founded where? In active listening. It's the strongest factor in helping your children to become resilient, responsible, and caring people. Kasi nga, soft skill siya. So, pag if it becomes a habit, if it's something that you practice daily, then what will be its result? Ito long term. So they'll become resilient people, responsible and caring. Diba in our time, in our age, notice that not many people are that caring anymore. O ako lang nakaka-notice. So not many people, okay, some people may you know, may show that they are responsible pag nandiyan si boss. May mga ganon, di ba? I'm not saying kilala nyo siya or what. Nagkikita lang na napapanood. Di ba yung mga napapanood natin, whatever we watch from telenovela or movies, they are all reflection of the reality of life. Right? So, tignan mo, meron siya doon isa na sinasabi, who are open to your love and your guidance. Ganda, di ba? And then, before I blurt out number 7, yung impact number 7, di ba may arrow? Do you see the arrow there? Alright? Can we go to the next slide before we talk about number 7? Right. So, punta muna tayo dito sa mga scenarios. Anyway, I still have 10 minutes. You can read that, and your assignment is find out which scenario. We have 1, 2, oh, can you identify yourselves in any one of the scenario? That's 1, 2. Between 1 and 2, which you think you are that kind of mother? So, siyempre hindi nyo yan masasagot kasi wala masyadong interaction. I need to finish the talk. Let's go to the next slide. There is scenario 3. Okay? Now let us do a little role play. I don't want to go to school today. It's boring. And mother said, you're not happy at school because it isn't interesting to you. Yeah, nobody likes it. And the kids don't listen to the teacher when she tells them to do something. It bothers you that the other kids don't behave. They are mean to me and some other kids. When the teacher isn't looking, they throw rolled up pieces of paper at me. I hate that. And Mrs. Tanner doesn't even know what's going on. She's so lame. Imagine a kid saying that to the mother. You are really angry at the kids and feel so let down that your teacher doesn't even do anything about it. You would expect the teacher to know what is happening in the room. Yeah, I want to let her know what the other kids are doing. Okay, so if you go back to the previous slide and the reaction of the mothers in three scenarios, all right, look at the reaction here, all right? Mother said, well, you better learn to like it and to learn like school too. You don't have a choice. You know, you have to go to school. Everyone has to go do things they don't want to do, and you are no different. That's the reaction of the mother. The second scenario, mother said, I'm going to just go right up to school and tell Mrs. Tanner that she has to make up special lessons that will keep you interested. And then what does the daughter say? No, mother, don't do that. Okay, which do you think are you? Or which do you think is the mother who really listens and who practices active listening, right? So go back to the, if we go back to the, yes, this one, the first mom is somebody who, you know, just demands. Kailangan mo pumunta sa school eh. Wala kang choice. Yung pangalawa naman, sabi niya, haharapin ko yung teacher na yan. Hindi niya alam nangyayari. Something like that. Pero yung pangatlong mother, sabi niya, so, kung ayaw mo yung school, ayaw mong harapin yung mother, so ano bang gusto mong gawin natin para makatulong ka sa school? Para makatulong ka kay teacher. So, sa tatlong mothers na yun, malalaman na natin kung ano yung power ng active listening. So, active listening can help empower your child by aiding her in getting clear about what her feelings are, even yung emotions ng bata, if we are an active listener. Kaya nga tinawag ko siyang impact. That's why I call it impact and an implication. Kasi even her emotions can now be validated. Hindi dahil tinuro mo sa kanya, not because you taught her or taught him, but simply because you have given her an opportunity to validate what she feels, what he thinks, etc. So even in coming to some decisions, so you are also building up their ability to do some problem solving activities or some problem solving situations. And that way, you are empowering them to come up with solutions that, that may come their way should they arise, should circumstances arise, or should they face circumstances that are part of growing up. So ultimately, because you know how to listen, you are an active listener, then you get closer to your child. Okay ba? So, I have 7 implications to that I have shared with you, and a situation or 3 scenarios focusing on one situation, and that is, really building up or really highlighting the importance of active listening. So to end this short talk, because I still have to allot some few minutes to thank Bival. Okay, And as a way of thanking Vival, I'd like us to take a look at the products they offer. I'm really grateful to Vival. That they are proactive in a sense that, they can come up right away with some measures by which schooling can be addressed at home. So even if the DepEd is still uh, not sure whether we will be having face-to-face classes or what, it doesn't mean that learning stops. One particular company, and I'm so grateful that they have invited me, like Vival has developed several ways by which you don't stop learning. This is one way of really listening. Because if Vival did not listen to what COVID-19 is saying, they would not have prepared such things, right? So see, they have these learn at home kits. And what's the beauty? Oh, by the way, can you please screenshot or take a picture of how you connect with them, right? So that's it. They have different ways by which you can check. What is this learn at home kits? Okay? So it's complete. It's one whole package. You can have activity sheets, there's a test booklet, supplement, academic book, etc. So they were able to devise, okay, different mechanisms by which learning can still take place, whether you are online or offline. Kasi meron naman synchronous and asynchronous way by which this can be accessed. Right? So, dahil nagpapasalamat ako sa Bibal because of their generosity in considering me as one of the resource speakers, I really suggest that you go visit the website, the Bival's website, and find out yourselves what other products they can offer you depends on your need. But right now, in relation to the talk that I shared with you, I believe that you can focus on learn at home kits because kids can do some interactive activities with you while answering the activity sheets. And at the same time, it will give you also an opportunity to go back to your previous um, how you pick those things up. Like, for example, in mathematics, you did not really learn factoring when you were a kid. Doing it with them because there's a subject in mathematics can help. You can restudy factoring and then come up because you are more mature now. You can maximize how you can do factoring this time with your children. That's just one example. Perhaps in science, you don't really understand the different layers of this, the troposphere, etc. Maybe this time you can now understand it better. Something like that. It's also fun to learn with your kid. And I think Bival has it. Then, next slide. Now, how do you, no, maybe you say, may bayad yan. Well, take a look at next slide. Right? Next slide says there is a free online starter kit. So, there's free online. Makikita nyo po yun. There's a way by which you can avail of the starter kit and it's for free. If I were you, I will really grab the chance. And then, ang maganda po dito, it is already aligned with DepEd's K-12 curriculum. So para ka na rin nasa school. At saka meron silang mga online support. So, ngayon naman po, dahil I come to the point to really interact with you through your questions, maybe we turn the floor to Ma'am Kia and shoot in some questions that you guys have been thinking about. I hope may mga questions.
Yes po, Doc Glenn. Good morning po.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes po. Doc, we have here a question from Miss Frida Tayao. How can we
Ma'am
teach
Frida.
Ayan po. How can we teach our children to actively listen even at an early age?
There are ways by which you can do that. Okay? So, depende po kasi yung interest. If you know your child's interests, perhaps you can dwell on that. How old was, how old are these kids you are referring to? It also matters because there's such thing as readiness. Kung this time po, if since the question is kind of limited, if the kid is interested in, you know, using the hands, like manipulating toys, things like that, then you can use that particular interest of the kid to win, okay, his attention. And at the same time, as you win his attention, you can now start teaching listening one after the other. For example, if he's very fond of, you know, manipulating toys, you can buy some toys and then let him listen, and at the same time watch as to how you put the toy up. That's one thing. Marami pa po. For example naman, hindi naman siya manipulative yung hand niya, hindi naman niya masyadong ginagala. But he keeps, the guy or the boy, the girl likes to read. So oftentimes yung mga kids who love to read, medyo hindi sila masyadong interested makinig. So may iba naman din pong technique. There's another technique for those kinds of kids. So perhaps you can take a look at the book that she or he is engaged with, and then come up with a specific part that you can discuss with him. Yun, babasahin mo lang din yung libro. So, stuff like that. And I think, ma'am, we are so blessed with materials available online. And just be a little bit of resourceful and find out some techniques that would really fit the child you have in mind. Yun po. So, apologies kasi my answer is in general. Also, yung mga extreme cases din, kasi may mga specialist din naman dyan, like yung hindi talaga masyadong nakikinig, may mga child psychologist naman tayo or specialist that can help you with that. Pero kung mga simple lang naman, yung we can always come up with a solution, just like the examples I mentioned. Try nyo po, baka po makatulong.
Okay po, thank you so much, Doc Glenn. Here is our second question from Mr. Ivan Montero, LPT. Yan po. The question po, Doc, is, does this mean that a student who doesn't listen in class did not learn the skill of listening at home?
If you expect me po to give you an answer, Sir Ivan, yes or no, I'm sorry, but I can't, because first of all, as a teacher, I was an elementary school teacher for several years. Honestly speaking, a child or some children who may be having behavioral issues in the classroom, when you try to dig things out in them, it always happens that it started at the comforts of their home. But there are other factors that may come with it. Kasi there's such thing as nature and nurture. Naniniwala rin po ako dyan. So there are parents who seem to be so kind and sometimes close to perfect, but they have kids who are not. So to give an answer to that question, maybe instead of, you know, instead of thinking about who caused this or why is he like that, maybe it would be far better that we devise ways by which we can help the kid so that he can understand the importance of listening. Yun po, Sir Ivan. I hope I answered your question.
And for our last question po, Doc Glenn, for this morning, the question is from Miss Luz Salamenyo. Are there strategies to maintain attention and active listening of children during online classes?
Honestly, ma'am, probably do some experiments and come up with those experiments and then write an article about it, because that will enrich the available literature that we have for online sessions. As of the moment, as far as my knowledge and understanding is concerned, yung mga ganito pong online sessions, lahat po yan, even if it started long ago, ngayon pa lang po talaga malalaman if itong mga challenges that come our way. Example is, for example po, you are conducting an online class. How sure are you that, parang tayo na rin How sure, okay, for example, we are attending a webinar like this. How sure is Bival that all the attendees are really listening? Parang ako, hindi naman lahat ng webinars na ina-attendan ko, 100% yung listening ko. Now, how do we measure that? Wala pa po. So, in terms of strategy, for example, sa small group or sa klase nyo, for example, may Zoom class kayo, or if not Zoom class, you have your own learning management system. Tapos parang feeling mo, as a teacher, you're the only one speaking. Take note of that and come up with some reflection as to how you can address it. Kasi po sa totoo lang, mas maganda po ngayon lahat, reflective tayo para we can build literature for online sessions. Yung lahat ng reflections ng mga gurong nagtuturo online, kasama na ako doon, we can write that down and come up with, something concrete. Tapos, if a certain strategy that you did for your kind of students really worked, share it with the rest of the world. And, di ba, it's such a lot of fun. So, as an answer to that question, this is a good opportunity, very good opportunity for all of us to come up with our own strategies that will really empower online education. Kulang na kulang pa po talaga. Kasi ngayon pa lang po everywhere in the world nag-turn to online. In the past, may online, pero traditional schooling pa din most of people favor. It's still the traditional schooling that people favor, di ba? Ngayon, we don't have any choice. So, I'd like to suggest that we really have to come up with, different strategies. Let's innovate. There's nothing wrong. And then, kasi naman, if we are reflective, there's always a way to innovate. Di ba yung innovation, there's something new out of something old. So, let's keep on trying. Yun po.
Okay po, Doc Glenn. Thank you so much po, Doc. One last pahabol question from one of our viewers again, Mr. Ivan Montero LPT. If active listening is a must, so when do we use passive listening?
If your question, if active listening is a must, so I will answer with an if as well. Okay. There are instances in our life, in our relationships, that we'd rather not speak our thoughts. We'd rather be a passive listener than an active one. Why? Because if we become an active listener and we tend to give what we are asked for, then sometimes hindi naging maganda yung resulta, mukhang makakasama pa. So if your question is an if, so depends on the circumstance. May mga instances I do believe that we better become passive, honestly. But as to which instances are those and which implications that might create, I don't know. It's all up to the person as to how he or she manages the opportunities, the challenges. Kaya nga, yung active listening is a soft skill. Kasi aside from soft skill, meron ding mga hard skills, right? So, yung pag once a person is educated, we have to apply that education in all circumstances. So, kukombine natin yung mga natutunan natin. That, I believe, is what it's all enlightenment about. It's all about when somebody is enlightened, so hindi lang na-enlightened, na-transform siya kasi na-apply niya yung mga natutunan niya. So, in short, depende yan sa circumstance, depende yan sa opportunity. Kung kinakailangan na maging passive listener ka para mas mapayapa, bakit hindi? Siguro, bigay na lang kita ng isang example. Kaya lang kung meron kang partner, sa partner mo, sama kayo sa bahay, sometimes it is better to become a passive listener. Kasi, for example, the other person keeps on nagging, all the same thing, all the same time, every day. Sa palagay mo, dapat ba mag-active listener ka doon? It's gonna be unpeaceful. So, wala ka naman choice. Hindi mo naman pwedeng isoli yan. Or, mahal mo naman yan kahit ganyang kadaldal or kademanding. So, discuss mo. Pero, if nga kung wala ka nang magagawa, I hope I talk sense to you. Kung gusto mo, pwede pa natin yan pag-usapan. Pero, as of now, limited lang yung time. Yun lang yung example na naisip ko. Kasi, very, very significant yan sa couple, sa mag-asawa, yung passive listening.
Okay, thank you so much po, Doc Glenn, for addressing the questions of our viewers this morning. Before we finally end the session po, do you have any final reminders or thoughts for our viewers po?
I hope you guys did not just learn, but you were as well entertained. Siguro mas maganda maging magkaibigan tayo through Vival. Continue lang natin yung open-mindedness and trying to learn new things. Kung may bago man akong na-share, explore, and who knows, baka makatulong. And with that, I'm so grateful na sinagaan niyo ako ng 1 hour. Sana naman hindi yan yung tiyaga na hirap, but it's patience that you will get something from. Salamat po sa inyo and hope to see you again. Thanks, Vival Group, and everyone else from there, Ma'am Kia, Ma'am Michelle, Ma'am CM, and of course, mga bosses. Salamat po sa inyo lahat. And stay happy and healthy.
There we have it. Thank you so much, Doc Glenn, for spending your Tuesday morning with us. It is our honor to have you here in one of our webinar sessions. Thank you so much po, Doc. And of course, to all our Capable viewers, thank you so much as well for your continuous patronage to our learning sessions every day. We'll hope to see you again later and for the rest of the week for all our learning sessions. Once again, good morning and have a great day, everyone.